Hello everyone, and welcome to another game from the Xtracon Open. We said that we were gonna check up on how Praggo is doing, as he was the sole leader after 7 rounds of the Xtracon Open. Here is a game from the penultimate round. He faces Murli Kartakian. Not so long ago we've shown a game that he played really a brilliant queen sacrifice in the style of Rashid Nejmedinov. If you haven't seen it, do check it out. It's truly amazing. It will be the first thing you see in the description below. Just click on it and enjoy some nice queen sacrificing. But this game, like I said, penultimate round of the Xtracon Open, Praggnanandhaa with the white pieces. Let's check out the game, as it is a very nice game. Praggo opens with knight to f3. We have Doreti, knight to f6, g3, g6, and bishop to g2. We have bishop to g7, castles, and now d4. So everything pretty standard. It's interesting to mention, I think Praggnanandhaa is the 27th seed in this tournament, so a lot of players are high rated than him. Even Murli Kartakian here is over 2600, whereas Praggo is 2540 something. Just thought you might be interested in that. And I know a lot of you ask me to return the ratings, but there is a very specific reason why I don't show the ratings below players' names. I only did it a few times, sometimes during engine games, and of course during the World Chess Championship match between Carlsen and Caruana. But maybe in the future I will consider it some more. We have d6, rook to e1, and now c5, just challenging the center. D captures, and now the main line here is just to trade queens here, but Praggnanandhaa goes for c3. It's a very rare line. It has only been played once before this game, in 1997 in Zagreb Open in Croatia. Srđan Marangunić played it against Josip Njernjak, and the game ended in a draw. But that game continued with bishop to f5, but here we have queen to b6. Kartakian now chooses a different line, and it is as of move 8 that we have a completely new game. So now the queen is developed. You want to bring this rook over to d8, as white's queen is still on d1. So queen to a4 by Praggnanandhaa. We have knight to c6, and now knight to a3, going for c4. We have a6, knight to c4, attacking black's queen, and queen to b5 now. Here, Praggnanandhaa trades with queen captures, pawn captures, attacking the knight, and knight to b6, attacking the rook and the bishop. Rook to a6, forcing the knight to move. Knight captures on c8, rook captures on c8, and now just a3. So now when you look at this position, black's pawn structure is a bit messed up. He has doubled b pawns, and Praggnanandhaa still has the bishop pair. So it's not much to go on, but it is something. On the other hand, black has a semi-open a file for the rook. If he can do something with that, well, he definitely should. So b4, of course you want to open up and get rid of your doubled pawn on the queen side. You cannot capture here, as white's rooks still aren't connected. So c captures on b4, we have c captures on b4, and now rook to b1. So now if black goes for this trade, after trading, the white rook will already be targeting b7. We have knight to e4 by black, and now knight to g5, offering a trade of knights, and knight to d6, not allowing it. If you trade, then white gets to develop the bishop for free. So knight back to d6, and now a captures on b4. And here, Murli doesn't recapture right away. There's time to recapture doubled pawns. He first wants to improve his position. First, rook to b6. Now he will be able to choose if he wants to maybe capture with the knight or with the rook. We have b3, and doesn't want this pawn to remain a target here. Also maybe creates room on b2 for his dark square bishop. We have bishop to c3, now attacking the rook, and now with a triple attack against the b4 pawn. Rook to d1, and now knight to d4. So still taking it easy. There's always time to recapture here, but he wants to capture on e2 with check. So king to f1. Praggnanandhaa defends with the queen, and now rook to a8, still waiting to recapture the b pawn. We have rook to d3, attacking the bishop here, and now rook to a1, forcing a trade. Rook captures, and here bishop to d2. So here Praggnanandhaa says now you cannot capture on b4, but Kartakian goes knight to c2. So now the b4 pawn is attacked once again. So all in all, he wants to equalize, and then see what can be done in this position. We have knight to e4, now offering a trade, and here we have bishop back to e5. It's interesting if you capture, for example, knight captures on b4, attacking the rook, white will go bishop e3, attack this rook. And now after knight captures rook, bishop captures here, knight c8 attacks the bishop, bishop goes back to e3 and knight e5. You have this position, but the problem is white still has the bishop pair, and the bishop pair, as you know, is always very deadly. It will be somewhat difficult to hang on to this pawn, and then white will use the bishop pair to escort his probably soon to be passed pawn up the board. So this is one way to do it. Murli doesn't like his chances there, so he goes bishop to e5, just bringing another defender to the knight here. And what can white do here? Feel free to pause the video here and try to find the best idea for Praggnanandhaa in this position. Well, I give you a couple of seconds. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, you are an excellent finder of winning moves with the rook. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, the move is rook to d5. It's a pretty concrete idea. You're attacking the bishop. The bishop now has to move. So where do you move it? One way is to defend it with f6. The problem with f6 is knight c5. Knight c5 now threatens knight a4 to win the rook, and you can't really do all that much here. For example, if you capture knight captures on b4, just knight to a4, and now you will not be able to move the rook, as you have to keep an eye on the knight on b4. So it's a very tricky idea to go for this f6 idea. And on the other hand, if you move the bishop back, well, the problem is you've just brought the bishop from there. So, for example, if you play bishop to b2, this was played in the game, but now Praggnanandhaa just wins a pawn. Knight captures on d6. Okay, if you capture with the rook, then it's all over. Rook captures, e captures, and bishop captures on b7. Now you will easily use the bishop pair, and already the bishop is guarding the b4 pawn, so now you're just going to move the bishop and push your passed pawn to victory. So, of course, Karthikeyan did not go for this. He played pawn captures on d6, and now bishop to f4. Praggnanandhaa now goes for the d6 pawn. Also, a possibility was b5. Just force that rook to remain there. Now the rook cannot move. a6 and, of course, c6 are covered. Bishop to a5 is the threat. You're just, planning to win the rook. And now after knight d4, only way to play this, bishop to a5 attack the rook, and now rook captures on b5. It's not a problem. Rook captures, knight captures, and again bishop captures on b7. You're gonna move your bishop, start pushing your pawn, and it's gonna be a swift victory. So here, after e captures on d6, Praggnanandhaa did not go for b5. He played bishop to f4. It's just a different line, and now bishop to e5. We have bishop captures, pawn captures, rook captures, knight captures on b4, and now, although it's still seems like a playable position, Praggnanandhaa has rook to e7, and now there's no way of defending the b7 pawn. We have knight to c6 attacking the rook, and now rook to d7 first. Here, trying to get black to capture on b4. If rook captures b4, then you get bishop d5, where you will just grab a lot of material. So king to f8, not allowing the f pawn to be pinned, and also preparing king to e8 to push away the rook. But now bishop to d5 attacking the pawn here, and the knight to e7 blocking the rook. We have bishop back to c4, now the b3 pawn, nicely protected, not a lot for black to do here. We have king to e8 attacking the rook, and now rook to c7. We have f6, now the king can move, as the f7 pawn will not be a target. We have rook to c5, not allowing the king to attack the rook with tempo. King to d7, and now rook to a5. We have knight to c6 attacking the rook, rook to b5 offering a rook trade, and king to c7. And now rook to c5 again. We have king to d6, rook d5 check, king to e7, and now finally f4. We have knight to b4 attacking Praggnanandhaa's rook here, rook to c5, and now knight back to c6. So Karthikeyan really forcing Praggnanandhaa to figure out how to go about this. He does have an extra pawn, but can he push for a win with his extra pawn against a 2600 plus grandmaster? Praggnanandhaa says yes, he can. He pushes e4 with rook to b4, and now finally what you always want to do in an endgame, you start bringing your king into the game. King f2, knight to d4 now with a double attack against the b3 pawn, rook to c7 check, although if you don't move the knight, it's hard to find any activity. You have to allow this rook to infiltrate, otherwise you're just gonna allow king to e3 and then no more knight jumps are possible. So here Kartakian decides to activate knight d4, we have rook c7 check, king to d6, and now rook captures on h7. Knight captures on b3, grabs that pawn, bishop captures, rook captures, not allowing the king to reach the third rank, but it's not a problem. Rook h6, now you're just gonna gobble up these pawns, there's no way to defend them. With b5, Kartakian starts pushing his pass pawn on the queen side, and now just rook captures on g6. King c7, we have rook captures on f6, and now b4. And now, okay, it's somewhat an advanced pass pawn, but Praggnanandhaa has 4 connected pass pawns, which is... well, which is pretty much winning, even if you give up this rook somehow for this pawn, 4 pawns against the rook. There's just no way around it. Praggnanandhaa starts pushing his own pass pawn with e5, rook b2 check, now king f3, we have rook b3 check, king g4, no more checks now, rook d3, making room for the pass pawn, but now rook to a6. We have rook to a3, trying to get this trade in. Of course, this would be great for black. So Praggnanandhaa declines it. We have rook to d6 and now b3. Rook d1, preparing to block with rook to b1. We have b2 and now rook to b1. And here, it was in this position on move 58 that Murli Kartakian resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. You have to defend your passed pawn, and then, well, white will just start bringing his king, king f5, you can bring your king to f7, just push this pawn to victory. At some point, black will have to prevent this, then white will capture this pawn, and then you're just winning with all those nice passed pawns on the king side. So yeah, that's pretty much the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. Here, I did prepare the standings, which is just insane. And also, well, before I actually show you the standings, I want to show you something else, but I didn't prepare it. Just give me a second. I mean, I did prepare it, I just didn't prepare it to show it to you, which will take me maybe 3 more seconds. Yeah, it's right over here, I think. Nope, not there. Sorry about that. No idea why it's taking me so long to find it. All right, almost there. I think this is it. Yep, this is it. There we go. Sorry about that. There you have it. These are Praggnanandhaa's opponents in the Xtracon 2019, so let's just check it out. So as you can see, he finished the tournament with 8.5 out of 10. After 4 wins, he starts facing, well, he had 2 low-rated opponents, then 2 FIDE Masters, and then he faced 6 Grandmasters in a row. And this is amazing. Out of fighting 6 Grandmasters, all 6 higher rated than himself, and not one of them rated below 2600. He achieved 3 wins and 3 draws, and you know, those are very strong Grandmasters. Anton Korobov, really just a beast. Daniel Vokaturov, we've seen this game, and Murli Kartakian, also a very strong Grandmaster. And in the final round, after, well, fighting all those Grandmasters, he drew against Semil Sevian, the Grandmaster his sister defeated in round 3. So the Vaishali also somewhat helped in Prague winning first place, but you know, who knows, you know, probably doesn't even matter. But you know, if she didn't beat him, then he would have faced someone else, and everything would have you know, been differently. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what I wanted to show you. And here a short table of the standings. There you have it. Pragu first with 8.5, with sole lead ahead of all the other players who are tied with 8 points. Arjan Tari, Gabriel Sargsyan, Evgeny Posny, Semil Sevian, and Alan Zig Rasmussen. So really an impressive showing. You can see that Pragu's rating is 2540, and he finished with 2741 rating performance. So he won some 30 rating points, maybe a little below that, but really insane when you can you know, play against 6 Grandmasters in a row and win rating, who are all higher rated than yourself. Win any rating is a lot. Winning 30 rating points when you're Grandmaster is just insane. So big congratulations to Praggnanandhaa, you know, going after that 2600 rating barrier. I'm pretty sure he's gonna get there very soon. And then, you know, it's off to the 2700 as that happens. So yeah, once again, I do hope you enjoyed it. Sorry about taking me so long to locate the table. You know, I really have to start naming my folders properly. But yeah, thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day. Of course, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. You know, have an excellent rest of your Sunday.